I trailed behind, my daughter Emily perched on my hip, her small legs wrapped around my waist. Our son, James, walked beside us, his backpack a miniature version of his father's. The trail was well worn, the dirt smooth beneath our feet. The air was thick with the scent of pine. The only sounds the rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird. It was idyllic, the kind of scene that made you believe in the goodness of the world. As the day wore on, the sun beating down on us, we began to look for a place to set up camp. Mark had brought a map, highlighted trails and campsites marked in neat red X's, but as we walked, the markers became less frequent, the trail growing narrower and rockier. I thought you said this was a popular spot, I said, shifting Emily's weight. She was getting heavier, her head lolling against my shoulder. It's supposed to be, Mark replied. Consulting the map, maybe we took a wrong turn. I felt a prickle of unease. We were alone, the trees towering above us like sentinels. I could see nothing but wilderness in every direction. As the sun began to set, we found a small clearing. It was ringed in rocks, a blackened pit in the center. It was perfect, and yet something about it felt off. This okay? Mark asked, already beginning to set up the tent. I hesitated, and sure, but it was getting dark, and the kids were tired. It's fine, I said finally. As night fell, we huddled around the fire, roasting marshmallows and telling stories. The kids were happy, their faces aglow with the flickering light, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The skin on the back of my neck prickling. As we settled in for the night, the silence was oppressive. The fire crackled and spat, the only sound in the stillness. I lay awake, my ears straining to hear something, anything. It was then that I heard it, a rustling in the bushes, low and steady. At first, I thought it was an animal, but then it stopped. There was silence, and then it began again. Closer this time. I sat up, my heart pounding. Mark stirred beside me, his eyes half-lidded. What is it? He mumbled. I don't know, I whispered, my eyes scanning the darkness. And then a figure emerged from the trees. It was tall and imposing, its features indistinct in the dim light. I gasped, my hand tightening on Mark's arm. But as I watched, the figure resolved into a man. He was dressed in hiking gear, a backpack slung over his shoulder. He looked around the campsite, his eyes confused. Where am I? He asked, his voice low and rough. Mark sat up, rubbing his eyes. You're in the mountains, he replied. Do you need some help? The man nodded. Sink in.